Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is episode 132, recorded on April 6th, and probably be first shown on April 7th. So if you want to see all of our episodes, go to my video blog, walkinthepark.tv, walkinthepark.tv. So we show every week on Pegasus, public access television in Ithaca, New York, channel 13 and 97.1 for the time being. We're going to go to Taughannock Falls this time, the probably best known signature waterfall of the Ithaca-Cayuga Lake area, although technically it's in town of Ulysses and closer to Trumansburg than the city of Ithaca. But Ithaca is gorgeous, and we're going to look at it in terms of its changes at Taughannock Falls in various ways. Changes at the time of the year. Actually, this picture was taken on Easter Sunday, so just almost 2 weeks ago. But we're going to look at it in the spring, which it is now, although it's hard to tell. We had a little snow and cold weather the other day. This week, actually, it was below zero yesterday morning, April 5th. Anyway, but in summer, like it was last summer, it's going to look green again. And then, of course, inevitably the fall will come. And so we get the changes of the seasons. So that's one of the ways that Taughannock Falls changes. But it changes in many ways. And of course, inevitably, winter will be back and we will celebrate the falls again. We had a mild winter this year, but last winter, 2015, the winter of 2015, quite a pile of ice built up underneath the waterfall. So this is a view from, the other view is from the overlook at the park, but this is from another little overlook along the rim trail to the east of the main overlook. So if you go up the rim trail to the right, you'll come to this amazing overlook. We'll have a few shots of this at different times of the year and so forth. So, but I'm going to animate all this. We were going to look at a park minute I made of Taughannock Falls last winter during the amazing ice formations that we had. So just stand by here and I will have us a Park Minute video. Okay, so that ice dome that forms usually every winter, although it didn't form much this winter because it was so mild, built up halfway up the cliff below the falls last winter. I've never seen it get that high. So of course we had the coldest February on record, so that contributed to that. So well, eventually, inevitably, the thaw comes. So we get a water pouring through the ice dome and ripping it apart and cutting a hole in it, and that makes for some pretty dramatic views from the overlook. So we get a lot of variety of looks at Taughannock Falls. It changes all the time. This winter we had a thaw in January. We had a little rain and thaw and so forth. So I made another little amazing video. At least I think it's amazing. So let's take a look at that. Pretty dramatic, huh? That was a great day to be up there. I went with a GoPro camera on my chest and got some of that footage. Of course, the green will come back. Spring will come. Summer will come. We can get high water, quite a bit of water variation actually in the falls any time of the year. It's not a very big watershed. It's about 10 miles long, and it really responds to the weather. So if we get heavy rain in the summer or the spring of the summer or the fall, anytime, you can get some really wonderful full water in the fall. So we'll take a look at yet another little video showing that phenomenon. With recent heavy rains, Taughannock Creek has spread all the way across its broad limestone bed, and the Great Falls has reached its full breadth as well. All right. So it's sometimes the water is intermediate, like in this fall picture. We often in the late summer and in the fall it can get quite dry. August is often the driest month. Sometimes it even looks like that. I think this is probably an August picture. Very little water on the falls at all. And in fact, well, I don't know if it's ever technically ever completely dried up, but I have seen it when the only way I could tell there was water coming over the falls was standing at the overlook with a pair of binoculars, and otherwise you couldn't tell. So there'll be this wet splash of a little bit of water coming over. But it also, Taughannock Falls, its aspect changes according simply to the time of day. Like in the morning, and when this, well, this is not the morning necessarily, this is actually the afternoon. I mean when the sun is shining, or when it's cloudy, or rainy. And, okay, here's the time of day I'm talking about. In the morning, when the sun is coming from the southeast, it lights up the wall on the right when you're looking from the overlook, and that is the northwest wall, and the southwest wall points northeast, and so that's in the shade. And then the middle of the day, there really isn't any time that the left wall gets much sun on it. And in fact, you find some Arctic plants, relic Arctic plants up in there. You don't find it, but they are up there on the cliffs. Biologists have found them because it gets no shade, so the climate there is actually a little cooler than elsewhere. In any case, here's what it looks like in the late afternoon, where you illuminate the top of the falls, but most everything else is in shade. And here's an amazing picture by photographer Joshua Snow. This is actually taken in the middle of the night with a 4-minute exposure. So if you go look, Google Joshua Snow photography, he's got a lot of amazing stuff, including of our waterfalls and other places around here. So once more, we're Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv to see all our shows. So let's get up in the air and we'll fly around and take a look at Taughannock. There's various views of Taughannock from different locations, as we've already alluded to, obviously from the air here. But looking in the center of the picture here is that northwest wall of the gorge, and just to the left of that rocky view there, the falls are in there, hard to see from there. And then the open area just to the right of the center area that's so rocky, that's our overlook where we look at the falls from. So here we are looking at the falls from the overlook, which is the way most people see it. And then here is that little overlook I was talking about farther up the North Rim Trail to the east. You go about 100 yards or so, and you go up a bit too, and you get this beautiful little view that's kept open by the park. And here's the view. Different time of day, different time of year, and a different amount of flow. And then here's a view that probably you can't get anymore. This is from the South Rim Trail. There's a couple of little overlooks along there, looking back up the gorge, and you can see the falls just to the very left of the cliff there, just the top of the falls. That's actually one of my favorite views of the falls. But some trees have grown in that overlook, so I'm not sure that's so accessible. Of course, the other great way to see the falls, and perhaps the best, is from the bottom, walking up the gorge trail, a very easy trail, as most everybody knows, and see it from down there. So, and then many fewer of us see it from this view, which is obviously from the air. And the East Hill Flying Club, that's not what this picture is taken, but the East Hill Flying Club has their pancake breakfast in the spring and in the fall, usually June and September. And they have flights that go up around, up or over the lake and then over the falls. And you can get a view something like this. I've done it once or twice, and it's a great thing to do. So, but there are other ways to look at changes at Taughannock Falls. Not only changes that we see on a daily basis, or from the perspective of different viewpoints, or on a seasonal basis, or times of varying flow. But let's take a look at the geologic mystery, the story behind this. Why do we even have something that looks like this? Well, we have to go back to the Ice Age, and the area that we live in is called the Allegheny Plateau by geologists, which covers southern New York and northern Pennsylvania, and it once had a bunch of river valleys in it. And during the Ice Ages, glaciers came down and reamed out those river valleys because they ran north and south, and they dug out these troughs that the lakes are in. This is a painting, a visualization of sort of a late stage of the Ice Age at Cayuga Lake by Professor William Dilger, who was at Cornell. And if you look at the upper part of the picture in the center there, you can actually see a plug of ice in the valley, and then beyond that, ice on the horizon. And the ice is actually damming up the valley. And those are, of course, mastodons in the foreground, and they're actually middle of the picture there. And there are some other plants and animals typical of the Arctic at the time. So we're going to go around and look from the other direction, looking from the sky, looking south down the Cayuga Valley. And you see the long winding valley that continues south of Ithaca. Taughannock is on the right. Ithaca is at the very end of the lake there where it says Ithaca Falls. And the valley continues another 20 miles. And this is a great glacial trough dug by the glaciers. And when they dug the trough during the Ice Age, it happened a number of times, streams that were on the sides of the valley, the original river valley that was there a couple of million years ago, found themselves suspended above the main valley, so they're called hanging valleys. And after the lake had been formed and the lake valley had formed, and they poured down the steep sides of the main glacial valley and hung from above, creating waterfalls that eroded out our gorges, like here at Taughannock, showing the gorge of Taughannock, which is flowing down towards the lake. Well, the stream is, and there's the resultant gorge that's eroded its way back into the hillside. And we'll fly around again. These pictures, all of these aerial pictures, most of them anyway, are by Bill Hecht, who is a local photographer, and he likes to share his work. We're very appreciative of Bill Hecht's amazing pictures. You look down there, you can see the overlook area, just right of center, and then that's the main gorge swinging around, and where the rock seems to end, that's where the falls are, tucked in to the left there. Swing around a little bit more, looking at the falls area, then zoom in, and there you can kind of see the falls in the shadow there. Not a lot of water on it on that particular day. So, but there's some other mysteries about the Taughannock Falls. It's a tall waterfall. It's the tallest waterfall in the area. It's one of the tallest in the east, 215 feet high. It's actually taller than Niagara Falls. And it's actually not the tallest in New York State, but that's another story. But it's an amazingly high waterfall. Why do we have one single drop? Most of our waterfalls around here are sort of staircase waterfalls, I call them. They drop in a series of steps. And actually, Taughannock does too. There are a couple of other waterfalls upstream from this, and then one more downstream. But there's one big dramatic step. Now, if you look at the cliff there, about halfway down, you can sort of make out a division. There's a dark rock that's all wet below, and then a line through the cliff. Let's see what an earth science teacher did with that. Well, the top of the falls is on a rock called the Sherburne Formation, which is mostly sandstone or siltstone. And below that is the Geneseo Formation, about halfway through the falls, and that's mostly shale. And shale is a very weak rock. It's made of compressed clay in the bottom of a sea, and when it gets wet and freezes, it splits up in little fragments and easily crumbles away. And if you look onto the right of the picture there, you can see that great slope just about where the Geneseo Formation is, and that's the great slope of crumbled shale, and also of rock that's fallen down from above from the Sherburne Formation. So most of this erosion happens during the winter when you have a lot of freezing and thawing, and the shale below gets really frosty and crumbles, and it ends up undermining the sandstone above, which is left unsupported. And if you look on the left and the right of the falls, you can see these sort of arches that have formed as the shale below that's eroded away has fallen. So, and we'll actually look at that in a minute. And it gets quite frosty, and so it's this frost action weathering away and then falling away as erosion that creates the overhang of the cliff. And since there's just this pair of two layers of rock, a simple pair, there's a Sherburne Formation and Geneseo Formation of different qualities, it creates one drop. Most of our other waterfalls around here, you get an alternation of layers of harder rock and softer rock, and then you have cracks crossing them, or places where ledges form, and that often becomes the site of a waterfall. But you don't get the big waterfalls. You get a series, with some exceptions, you get a series of drops. But here we have just two layers of rock, one soft, one harder, and we get that kind of dropping away from the harder rock above, but it also acts as kind of a cap. And above the sandstone is another layer of shale, the Ithaca Shale, the Ithaca Formation up there, but that's already been eroded through by the stream. So now I'm going to show you an amazing before and after here. This was taken by a guy, let's see if I can find his name, who took this picture. He's from England. Got to catch up here with the show. Yeah, this was a guy named Arthur Lovell of Oxford, England, took this picture in one day in, I think it was in 2010. I think it was in November 2010. So look at this and then compare it to this. He happened to be there at the right time to catch the rock falling. Now look above, to the left of the top of the falls, you can see there's a ledge where something is dropped out. Let's go back to the previous picture. Look at the rock that's still there. I'm going to flip back and forth. Here's before, here's after. Before, actually during. Before, during. Do you see that rock dropping away there? Apparently dropping away. Pretty cool, huh? That is the biggest picture. That is the picture of the biggest rock slide I've ever seen. I've never seen another picture of a rock slide as big as that. I've seen some other pictures and even been there with some rock slides, but nothing like that. Of course, all that stuff falls down below and piles up, and that's one of the reasons there's nothing growing down there to speak of, because of these frequent rock slides. That's also why you should not go beyond the end of the trail, because this sort of thing can happen at any time, anywhere around. And if you look at both sides of the falls, you can see where rock falls away on a regular basis. So once again, walk in the park, walkinthepark.tv to see all of our shows. Now we're going to take a look at history, how the falls have changed, and how people have changed, and how people have seen the falls differently over time. And here's a drawing from sometime in the 19th century, an early drawing of Taughannock Falls. I do not know when that was done, nor when this one was done, but they're very old drawings. And so the first pictures of Taughannock Falls were drawings until around the Civil War or so. People started taking photographs. And this is from about the area of the Overlook today. These photographs were taken. Here's another one. This one's actually a black and white photograph that's been colorized. Many people would, when they printed these things as postcards and stereographs, they would add color to them and then print them that way, but certainly no color photography back at that time. So where were these photographs taken from? Well, they were taken from about where the Overlook is, but these are the kind of structures that you would have found there then. Look at that stuff. There's the falls in the background, and little cabins and gazebos and chairs and fences and so forth. Here's a neat little gazebo. Can you see the falls in the lower left? And these folks are, where are they from? They're well dressed, and they're not hikers. Well, they might do some hiking, but they're not dressed for hiking. They're dressed for dinner at the Taughannock House, it was called. So right where the Overlook parking lot is today was this amazing hotel, and had a great dance floor. And they actually interviewed a woman, about more than 35 years ago, who remembered this hotel, and she told me about it. It burned down about 1922, and so there's various views. Look at these this structure at the Overlook, a viewpoint going down. A lot of the pictures that you see from the 19th century have different structures in them because they were made of wood, and particularly the ones that were on cliffs or in gorges. They didn't last very long because of that rock and ice and so forth would destroy them. This is one of the favorite pictures around, one of the ones you see most commonly of this group from that era in the 19th century. Hotel folks. Hotel people would come to the hotel by steamboat coming up the lake from Ithaca, or they could take a train. And the train route now is the Black Diamond Trail, they call it. And that was the name of the last train that ran on it. But it ran from, I think, like Sayre, Pennsylvania, all the way to Geneva, but it came up through Owego and Ithaca and went through Trumansburg, and it went at Taughannock Falls, and there was a station. So it only took 20 minutes to get from Ithaca to Taughannock Falls. So, well, it's not the only place that tourists looked at the falls or got access to the falls. On the other side, on the south side of the gorge, look at the way they spelled Taughannock. There was a variety of ways they spelled Taughannock until it was settled upon, probably when the state park was created, in its current spelling. But you can't spell it. Anyway, on the south side, here's what they call Point Lookout. Well, I think this is what's called Point Lookout anyway. This whole area is called Point Lookout. Look at this thing called the Cliff House. It's actually cantilevered over the edge of the gorge. I don't know if you could look through the floor or what, but that must have been an exciting spot. And here is another group of people that are at an overlook. This may be what's called Point Lookout. Looking back at the top of the falls, there doesn't have much water on it. But here they've gotten out of the way, and there is more water on it. And notice the top of the falls. They look different than they do today. Maybe we'll have time to talk about why that is, or I'll have to wait till next time. But in any case, here is the other hotel that was on the other side of the gorge, the south side of the gorge. The foundations of it are still back in the woods, and archaeological work has been done, and called the Cataract House. So they had, look at the structure on the right there. It's a little viewing point for the top of the falls, and people can actually get down into the stream, get to the edge of the falls. Of course, this is forbidden today because it's pretty doggone dangerous. And look at this guy over to the left of center there. He's posing at the very lip, Taughannock Falls. Another colorized photograph from the time. So, yeah, so that era is gone. Those hotels are gone. Those buildings are gone. That whole private thing. The park was created in 1925, though, and slowly expanded from there. The waterfall actually was not owned by the state until about 1935. So, of course, the other way that people did look at the falls was from below, and so a variety of shots from below. There wasn't a nice trail as there is today. It was kind of rough going up there. They also had a staircase that went down from the north rim, where the Taughannock House was, that went all the way down the side of the cliff to the gorge. And I guess it was, you had to have a little bit of a stomach to go down this very steep, hazardous stairways that occasionally get wiped out by landslides. Another view. There's a variety of pictures. Look at how the lip of the waterfalls sticks out there. So things changed in the neighborhood. Look at that. I don't know if you can read that on the bottom. Maybe not on your TV, but it says Goodwin's Falls. Before, it was Taughannock Falls. Before there were hotels there, it was called Goodwin's Falls, before Richard and Benjamin Goodwin, who were the first white settlers after the Revolutionary War that settled there. And then I guess they went after the more romantic Indian name that has a story behind it that I don't have time to tell you about today. But anyway, these pictures show the lip of the falls sticking out. But I don't have time to tell you just how that changed in the 19th century. So we will, next time, we will finish off the story with how did the lip of the falls change and when it changed, and get something what we have today. So thank you for joining me, and maybe you'll join me next time. The next episode, 133 should be, and we will consider that interesting piece of the story.